We've just added 3D buildings to the TPE Web app to make it much easier to plan alignments of the sun and the moon with a building in a city, or to plan a cityscape to see where the light is going to fall between buildings and so forth. I wanted to show you how to access that new functionality in the web app today, and I also wanted to walk through how you can use it in conjunction with some very recent updates that have been made to the visual search tool to make it incredibly quick and efficient to plan out such shots. We're going to go to Venice in Italy, as shown in the prints on the wall behind me, and we'll explore a couple of scenarios in Venice. Okay, let's jump in. Here we are on the home page of the web app, the map page up here, and I have the red pin in Venice in Italy, and we are looking at the satellite map on today's date at around 6 o'clock local time in the evening. I'm going to spend most of the time today on the 3D page because that's where a lot of this new functionality lives. So I'm going to switch over there now, and by default you'll see that we're in this outside looking in type view, which is called the orbit view, and it shows the direction of the sun and of the moon just risen, and the path of the moon over the course of the day, and if I zoom out, the path of the sun over the day. You can see that there. So I can move that around with the mouse. I can use 2 fingers to zoom in like that. I can change the amount of terrain that is loaded by adjusting the viewing distance. That just controls how much terrain fits in the circle, if you will. So I can just drop that down and we get a closer view. And we can also fly in. Now, first thing you might notice is that the building's a bit hard to tell what's going on there, not a ton of resolution in this particular view, but this is where we'll have a look at the new buildings feature. So I come down here to the configuration settings for the 3D view here at the bottom left. I click that. You can see I already have 3D terrain up at max and Milky Way up at max. I'll leave those as they are. Buildings are currently off, and I will turn them on, and the default one that I'll look at is the standard view. So let's just take a little look at what that does. You can see, hopefully very clearly now, that there are a lot of buildings have been loaded for Venice, and a lot of them look, you can see they sort of have this default height, so that's probably not necessarily the accurate height for the building. It's just an OpenStreetMap default value. So be wary of that. But then you'll notice some of the more prominent buildings, such as here in the Piazza San Marco. I'm using the control key dragging. You can see that those have better definition in terms of the shape and the height. And generally speaking, you'll find that these are accurate. One thing we can do is click on a building or a part of a building, and it will tell you the height. And just be wary that you can click different parts of buildings, which is sometimes useful for checking alignments with, you know, say an observation deck level of a building rather than the very top. So the bit that you've selected will highlight like that and gives you the height. So those are the buildings in the orbit view. And let's just look at what we get when I change this now up to the enhanced version. So a few things are immediately obvious. One is that we've got a few more buildings and a bit more color, and the color is meant to indicate the material of the roof or of the building elevation. Walls, there is a link, I'll put it in the description to the video for these standard OSM colors. And let me just click here on the top of the campanile here in the Piazza San Marco, and you see a couple of things. One, the enhanced buildings give us the name for the building. It gives you the height in whatever units you have selected, the roof shape and the facade material, and depending on what's in the database, you may see some other values show up there as well. So we can click around and find out what different buildings are just by clicking here. So Santa Maria della Salute is the big church on the view down the Grand Canal here. So feel free to explore those things. One thing I want to point out is that these building databases are not very good for bridges. So if you're familiar with Venice, you probably know that there is a bridge, the Academia Bridge, that goes across the canal here, and it's a point from which many photographs and indeed paintings and drawings and engravings have been made because of the view. And we'll have a look at that in coming up with a plan. So next step, we have buildings on. I've called out a couple of the differences between the standard and the enhanced buildings. Generally speaking, you will find better information, better metadata in the enhanced buildings, and you'll find better coverage. And also the app will load more of what is available in the scene with the enhanced option than it does with the standard option. So those are the main differences. But as you can see here, that most of these things they're not high resolution, high fidelity models of individual buildings. They are blocky, get the footprint correct, give you a sense of the shape and height of the building. Those types of models rather than a high fidelity thing. I think what's particularly useful though is the coverage is very extensive. So you'll find that pretty much most things are there. Next thing, I'm in orbit mode up here, 3D sphere, orbit the primary pin surroundings, which is what we've been doing for the past couple of minutes. And over here is a first person view from the primary pin. So I've placed the primary pin on the bridge. You may notice there's a little red cylinder just beneath it. I'll show you how that gets configured. It's very useful to know about. If I go to the geodetics panel at the right here at the top and click that, you can set a height above the ground level for the primary pin and or the secondary pin if it's enabled. I don't have it enabled here, so we don't need to worry about that too much. But you'll see here that, let's say, for example, we were photographing from a tall building. If I select the building's range and then slide that up, you see how it raises the red pin up and down to the height I've given you. So that is a way of matching the pin height above the ground to your actual shooting location, or if you were flying a drone and let's say your maximum operating height was around 400 feet, you can use the drone option here. These buttons simply control the range of this slider for convenience. So let me get back to the approximate bridge height, which I looked up earlier, which I think was about 21 feet at its highest point. So a small cylinder there, and now we're going to jump into the first person view. So let's go. Okay, it's loading. And here we are with a view looking east along the Grand Canal. So I'm using two fingers on my trackpad and I can zoom in and out. I can drag to look around. And one thing I can do, we'll do this just for fun so you can see how it works. Let's say we were going to be, you probably can't do this I would imagine, but imagine you were able to fly a drone over Venice like this. You can set the height and then look around from above the ground at that point at a very wide angle, as you can see. But you can also zoom in. This will take you all the way to 400 millimeters. You see how that building's loading indicator just came back in. What happens is as you as you extend your focal length, i.e. you have a longer telephoto lens on the camera, you want to be seeing these more distant buildings. So for example, I don't know what this is at all, I've never looked at it, but I'm going to zoom in all the way here to whatever this town is up here on the coast, and that's at 400 mil. You can see all of the buildings way out there. So Venice is not in our field of view, largely. Top of the Campanile is here. And then we zoom back out. And the scene will adapt to what is loaded based on the focal length you have selected. So I'm going to drop this back down to 21 feet because we're going to look at now at how you can plan a particular shot with the moon. So this is the view looking east, just south of east in this direction, down the Grand Canal towards the Dogana. This is the click on it, that's the Salute, a very attractive domed church as it's reported here. And typically what you would do for a shot like this is you might zoom in a little bit more, they tend to look better when this view looks better cropped in a little bit than when it's super wide, because you have a vast expanse of empty water and the buildings recede a little bit too far. So a slightly sort of mid-range focal length could work well for this. Let's imagine that what we want to do is to have a shot of the rising moon in this part of the sky. It may not matter exactly where, but we don't want it up here to the left. We don't really want it way over here off to the right, although that could work too, I guess. But let's imagine this is what we're going for. And we know that there's a good viewing point from that bridge that we can get to if we go to plan a trip to Venice. When could we get that shot? That's what we're going to talk about for the remainder of the video. And the classic tool for doing this, which is where you know where you're going to stand, you know the view that you want, and you want to get something like the moon or the sun or the galactic center, or if you're a deepscape photographer, a nebula, whatever it might be, into a particular part of the sky. We use the visual search tool. Here it is. As I opened that, it's popped up this box, and that box is the search area. So that's what we're saying, that this is where we want the object to appear. This UI over here has changed a little bit in recent versions, so let me just walk you through what's there. Previously there was a drop down where you could select the sun, the moon, or the galactic center, depending on your subscription level. Now you can select whichever bodies you have on display in the scene, and you can choose those over here. So in bodies and targets, I have the sun and the moon. I could add in other objects. I could put in, if I was a deepscape photographer, the Horsehead Nebula, for example, which in fact crosses our scene quite nicely, but is not something you would probably attempt to photograph in Venice. But you select the bodies you want, and then whatever you have selected, up to 3 things, you can choose the one that you are searching for with the visual search tool. So I'm going to search for the moon. I have it selected. There is a little offset panel, so if you say, let's say you were doing an alignment where you wanted the moon just sort of sit nestling in the corner of the top of the salute, remembering it's a dome, not a cylinder as shown here, you can adjust that offset and it will move the search area around by the offset. That's particularly useful for high precision alignments where you're saying I need it really very close, just above the top of a building or just hanging under a bridge, that sort of thing. You can set these values numerically if you wish by clicking, or you can move up and down by a semi-diameter. So that would be, for example, if you want the moon sitting atop something, then you would reset this and then you would add the semi-diameter, which is 1/4 of a degree. So that's lifting it half a moon's worth up from its default. That's what this alignment panel is. For this larger swathe of search area, I don't need to do an offset really, that's fine. Duration, you can choose over how many years you want to search. Now, most people are looking for things they can do in the relatively near future, so you might choose a year if that's the case. If you're looking for a very particular moon alignment, you probably know that the moon's declination moves over a 20-ish year cycle, and at the extremes of that cycle we get what's called the Great Lunar Standstill, where the moon appears to rise and set at its northern and southernmost extremes. So if you're looking for something that is only happening in those extremes, you may need to extend your search period. It'll obviously depend on which year you're starting from. We're just past the Great Lunar Standstill. But these longer durations also apply to the planets. So if you're searching for Jupiter or Mars or Venus, for example, sometimes they don't come into alignment for a good number of years, and then they will. So if you like to plan long term, this is how you can do it. We will choose, let's say, just 5 years, let's say, for the purposes of this illustration. And then I'm searching for a range. I'm not going to talk about target mode so much today because we're really looking at this thing here. And then this is the range of altitudes. So altitude is the vertical position, and azimuth, which is the horizontal position in which we would like to find the moon. And previously you used to have to type these values in. Now there's a much better way. Let me show you what that is. It's only available in this first person view mode, And to enable it, you click here on the Draw tool. So I'm going to click that. And let me just show you what it does. If I drag and define that region there, the search parameters move to there, and you may also note that the altitude and azimuth range is updated. You may also notice that there's now a little click-through button there, and up here on the right we have 658 results over the next 5 years when the moon will pass through that part of the sky. We haven't specified any other conditions on what we're looking for, but there's the result. If I just go to the list, you'll see a great long list of crossings, if you will, of the moon through that box that I drew. And these little sort of sparkline charts, if you will, show you where it crosses. So for example, let's have a look. In the morning, it's February 28, it crosses there. If I choose March 25th, it's crossing more centrally. And so you can eyeball these and say, well, what is the crossing that I really want? And click it, and you'll get the result in question. So let's go back to today. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just change the time so we've got a bit of daylight on the scene. And I'll come back here. I'm now going to redraw this for exactly the area we want. So I click there and I'll say anywhere in that zone, maybe even a little bit further, could work nicely. So that's my new search zone. It's searching here. I don't know if you saw that little progress bar. And now it's found 812 results for that part of the sky. So plenty to choose from. So let's have a look at some of them. There are three ways to browse through these. One, you can look at ranges of days or groups of days. Most of these are for the moon, it's an individual day because it moves around so much in the sky. But for the sun, you might find there's a whole, like a week's time where it'll pass through the window that you've specified. So you'll get multiple results for the week and they can be grouped. Or you can simply view the list and then choose from the list as I showed you before. The other way to browse the results is using these buttons here, and I can click to the next result. And the first one that it finds is the Saturday, August the 1st, 2026. And you can see that that's quite attractive. Let's just zoom in a little bit more so you can see what's going on here. We've got it's at night, so we're going to be reliant on light from the buildings and from boats to sort of illuminate the scene a little bit for us in order to offset the contrast of the moon here, because it's pretty dark by now. There's the moon at 2 degrees above the horizon, just 89% illuminated. So you can see that reflected here. I'll zoom in a bit more so you can see it. If I hold the spacebar down while I'm in draw mode, I can pan. It's very similar to the shortcut in Lightroom, if you happen to use Lightroom. If you're using a brush tool and you need to pan around to apply the brush elsewhere, you can hold the spacebar down and drag the scene around and then carry on with your original tool. So that's the spacebar just to pan. So this, the moon is shown in the correct phase with the features of the moon correctly oriented for the time and location and libration and so forth. So that's an accurate view of how the moon would appear at this time. Zoom back out a little bit. Now oops, so I want to undo that. There we go. If you make it small, it won't redraw, so that's good. I forgot to hold the spacebar down. Let's say, in fact, let me just remove the this distraction here. We don't need the Horsehead Nebula, so I'll just take that off for now and come back to visual search. And let's say we want to say, I want this shot, but I need it during twilight for contrast reasons. How can we do that? We've got 812 results here. This is where you can apply a filter. So there are a few easy ones to use here. There are a few suggested filters. You can do this manually if you want. So you can click plus and then you can choose between those bodies and choose some conditions. It depends which one you choose. You can say the moon. I want the moon illuminated fraction to be greater than 0.8, for example, and I can apply that, and that has filtered the results down to only 242 that meet that criterion. Alternatively, I can choose one of these suggested filters, which will configure everything for you. So a quite nice one is near sunrise and sunset, which says the sun has to be between -2 and +2 degrees. So let's apply that and see what we get. We get 28 results that match that. So we've got a largely full moon, and it's going to be with the setting sun or in the early stages of twilight, so no contrast issues really to worry about. Let's have a look and see what results we get. There's one. I want to show you how this shows up here. This gives you a window, and the time is when it passes through the box. So there'll be an entrance time and an exit time. That's the from and the to. Let me click that and you'll see it there. And then if I click this one, that's the exit time. And you'll notice that when I chose that result, it went sort of straight to the exit time. And that's because it's only as it's exiting that the sun is getting low enough to fulfill our filter criterion of being below 2 degrees. You see that here. Let's go to the next result. That one is lower in the sky and fuller and more centered, so that's quite attractive. September of next year. That one scrapes in on the far left there. I'll just flick through a few of these so you can see how that goes. I want to find one. Okay, so let's think about this one here. This is years out. Probably not going to wait that long for this shot. But let's say, for the purposes of argument, that you want to get the moon, but you really want it tucked in here, right next to the Salute, for example. I'll show you one more feature that is useful for this. We know from the map that we're on a bridge. I'm sad over the map, I apologize. But it's on a bridge, and we could move to our left or to our right. So if I go back into the shift mode, click here, now I'm using the cursor keys on the computer, and I can walk left or I can walk right. So, and then you can see that that's pretty good, but we may need to advance time. So I'm going to click in the timeline. Again, use the cursor keys to go 10 seconds forward, and there it is, tucked in. Now, obviously, this is not the precise shape of the building, but it's going to get you pretty close. So always remember that you can use the search box to broadly find the opportunities of when the moon is in the vicinity, and then you can fine-tune by walking the scene. And you can walk backwards and forwards, but obviously on a bridge we're pretty limited in how well that is going to go. But left and right is useful, and you can hold that key down and just keep walking, and it shows you how far you've moved. And get back right, so I'll tuck that back in where we were before. There you go. It shows you, it's interesting, it shows you how sensitive these alignments can be for relatively near buildings and the moon. And as you're walking, that is relocating the red pin on the map. So if I come back to the map, I'll zoom in here, you can see that we've ended up a little bit off the map. I'll go there. And we're right at the southern end of the bridge to get that. And so that's it possibly is a little bit lower at that end of the bridge. So you might want to go, yeah, there we go. And then we can dial it in going a little bit later. As soon as you click off the visual search tab up here, you'll notice the area box went away, the drawing tool has gone away. You just need to select visual search to bring that back. And then you can redraw at any time. It's super quick, super easy. I'm going to hold down the command key on my keyboard, and as I release this new region, it's going to search from today's date. So then the first opportunity to get that is 25th September 2026, and that's up there. So hopefully you've seen now how quick it is to scoot around this thing. You can walk around, you can fine-tune the camera position, you can fine-tune your composition with the zoom tools, One thing I didn't show you, but which I should show you, let's say we do want to fine tune the composition. I'm going to go to the field of view tab. It's currently off. I'm going to click gear, and what I have selected here is I've got this camera, Nikon Z8, and a 100 to 400mm lens with a teleconverter on, which I'm going to turn off because we don't need it. And then this is giving you the actual shape of what you'll see through the viewfinder, and the focal length, which again I'm using 2 fingers here to adjust. So I could crop into the Salute here. I could put it into vertical mode. I might want to go in a little bit tighter, maybe pull that to the right of the composition, and there's a shot. Then if you want to save the link to this shot, you can come at the very bottom right, click the share feature, and that link there has got all the details for the shot plan, including the field of view. And if you want to create a custom short link for that, you can just shorten the URL. So that's how you can save that link for future reference. So we covered a lot of ground. I hope that was a useful walkthrough of some of that new functionality. There's probably more I could have gone into, and I'll see if I can cover that in future videos. If this was helpful in your planning, please subscribe to the channel, and if you like the video, give it a like. I'd very much appreciate it. And please visit app.photoephemeris.com and try out these tools for yourself. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you.